My hands stable, I feel able to turn the tables, I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like sort of.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Philip J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show, your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
You guys know what to do, just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to have Nick from Please Bring Me Home. He was part of the search, organized the search recently in the Jack and Lilly Sullivan disappearance. We're going to talk about the search. We're going to talk about his experience and what he learned from the search and things of that nature. So we got a great show for you guys tonight. What we have lined up tomorrow, we'll be talking about the Brown University shooting that has occurred. We have suspects still at large, I believe, the last time I looked. And there's a lot of things that are going on. So we're going to start looking at that tomorrow. And then on Saturday, I'm going to have Mike Agato. He's from California, politician. He also had his father. His father's life was taken a few years back in 2013. It's a cold case, a murder homicide. We're going to have him on the show, talk about, his father's case and also the, how it's been being on the side of a victim's a family member of a victim. A lot of people see the impact, that a person that commits a heinous crime on obviously the victim. And then we see the impact of the court system and the media system of who the suspect is and the purpose. Nobody ever really sees what happens to the victim and their the victim family member. So we're going to get an insight on that on Saturday. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's bring in Nick. He's from Please Bring Me Home. Nick, welcome to the show. How you doing, my man?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good to have you. If you would tell us a little bit about how long you've been searching, how'd you get into searching, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So Please Bring Me Home. The idea started around 2016, just with a local case to Owen Sound, Ontario, that me and a few friends were just very curious about. And after we became curious about that and that became public, more families began reaching out and wanting us to help, especially locally. And then more people wanted to join Please Bring Me Home to help. So in 2018, we actually gave it an official name, and trying to explain what it is that we do has always been difficult, but it's really, is there always something that can be done when it comes to missing persons cases? And I think there always is. Cases become cold because there's nothing really to act on. So we try and, why is nothing being acted on? Why is no information coming in? Does that mean we got to put a billboard up somewhere? Does that mean we want to do a social media campaign? Do we want to put a story out in the paper? Put anonymous questionnaires in bars that certain people hang out at in hopes that they'll mail information in. And but what we're most known for, I think, is just the searching aspect. There are cases that we will get involved in an investigative capacity, and we can talk about kind of that wall that we're keeping up when we talk about Jack and Lilly. But in this case, it's been more than, I guess it's been more than 8 months now. Yeah. Since they had gone missing. So we know that because there was no searching happening at the time, and it seemed like there was not anything on the horizon search-wise, we felt that we were able to get involved in that capacity. So every case is different. We have over 107. We have about 107 or 108 active cases right now, Canada-wide. We've assisted in locating over 70 people Canada-wide. whether that be through investigative work or searches or an anonymous tip that comes in that leads to the location of the remains. There's a couple that we're just kind of waiting for law enforcement to make public that they have been found before we can really speak about it, but I'm excited to talk about those ones. Really one of those, especially comparing it to Jack and Lilly, because it just goes to show that clearing an area, it's not, you have to continuously go back and search and search and search. So we searched this one area for this individual 3 times. So we conducted 13 searches for this individual. And especially if it involves water and misadventure, you have to continue to go back. So, and again, we'll talk about that with Jack and Lilly about clearing an area.
Yeah. And so with Jack and Lilly, we'll start off there. How did you guys get involved with Jack and Lilly's Sullivan's disappearance? I believe it was a family member that contacted you. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Belinda had reached out to us via our online intake format. So a family member goes on, they fill out. It's quite an in-depth process now. It used to just be like 5 questions. Now I think it's about 30 questions. And then we have an intake officer that communicates with the family member and asks like 40 more questions that maybe it's better to do over Zoom or over the phone for those questions. And, we start to build, how can Please Bring Me Home help here? At the very least, if a family asks for help, we can put it on our social media and we can put it on our website. We may not get involved in an investigative capacity or search capacity. When Jack and Lilly came in, when their case had come in, we truly did not want to get involved. And it wasn't because it's so hard to decipher, because it's not because we didn't want to. It's that we really felt like there was nothing meaningful that we could do at that time. And I was on a search in Manitoulin Island with our search leader, and it was rare for me to be on a search with our search leader. And when the idea had presented about us going to Nova Scotia and doing a search, and I think we decided in that moment when we were on the ferry on the way home, that we're gonna go do it. So Belinda had reached out and she did it through the online intake form. And then we also had through our Facebook, our Please Bring Me Home Facebook, we had Haley and Cheryl reach out as well. So you had there's kind of three sides here, I guess you can say. And, so there were some members from Malaya's side who were reaching out, asking for help. And then from biological father's side, asking for help. So, and we made it very clear in that instance that we were not going to get involved in investigating whatsoever. If we're going to go, we're going to do good searching, methodical searching, and we're going to continue to be involved in the searching until Jack and Lilly are found. And we had very meaningful conversations with the RCMP leading up to that, during the search, after the search, made sure that we were on the same page with what we were there to do. And really just, if anyone wants to, talk about their thoughts and their opinions on the case and what they think may have occurred, not that we're going to say, please don't talk to me, but if it comes to us, we're going to refer you to the RCMP, because we can't have the information get stuck with us, because we're not going to act on it. Like, we're not going to act on tips that come in that kind of flow away from this misadventure and the wandering theory. I don't know if that's what happened in this case, but that's what we're searching for. We're searching for that these children wandered off and they passed away from wandering off and getting lost.
Yeah, that's to me, that's my theory. I think that they wandered off. I think the boot prints are pretty evident to that. Being the distance they were and how closely they match. I mean, exactly match what Lilly's boot prints that are missing that were just purchased. I mean, down to the 29 still being on there, which I'm assuming that number that stays on the bottom of the boot on the tread is something that only happens with relatively newer boots. I would assume that wears off after a while. And so her boots were just purchased in March. So those two things kind of mesh. And so once you guys decide that you guys are going to go out there and do a search for Jack and Lilly, I'm sure there are certain things that need to be logistically managed. You know, who's going to search and where you're going to search. How did those plans come together?
Yeah, so this one was a bit of a mixed bag to put together because the public wanted to be involved in a search, and we've been known for kind of advocating for that public need and that want to be involved. So you know, we put out a thing on social media inviting people out, because after looking at the map and even when we were comparing it to other cases in the past where we focused on misadventure, where these people have been missing for years, but everything had been completely cleared, everything had been completely searched, we were going in with that mentality. And after looking at the area, we knew that myself, our search director, and our search leader, we weren't going to cut it. Like, we needed more people. So we put it out online, people applied. I think we ended up with 33 active people there searching that day, and we just split them up into 6 groups. We had enough plans built for 11 groups. You know, if 11 groups show up, then this is what we're going to do, and we're just going to keep adding to those groups. It ended up being 6 groups, but it really focused on misadventure via water. So even if you brought up the boot prints, even if we're thinking about the boot prints, and nothing can be absolute, but the boot prints are interesting anyway. And even if you factor that in, the boot prints possibly being Jack and Lilly's, the way that middle river of Pictou flows, it could very well have been that they still wound up in that river south of where those boot prints were found, and they would have been flowing back towards where they had gone missing from. So the focus was around the water and trying to really just focused around that river right now. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that anyone who says that misadventure or wandering has been debunked honestly, truly does not know what they're talking about. And it concerns me when people say that, because it hasn't been debunked. A lot has been thrown at it. But I've been on the other end. I've been on the end where we've searched for people, and and it turns out that person winds up eventually winding up there where we had previously searched. Scattered remains, animal activity, environmental factors, water, all of these things factor into it. So I think that the best thing that we can do at Please Bring Me Home is continue to focus on the wandering and misadventure theory. And if that's not what happened, then all we're continuing to debunk it. And there's no harm in that. Getting involved in any other capacity with this case, I think, is wrong. I think that people can communicate this and talk about ideas, sure. But communicating about these children, I think, is important to a lot of people. But getting involved in an investigative capacity, when I have had many conversations with RCMP, and I'm confident in what they're doing right now in the investigative capacity and the search capacity. So yeah, it's I can't even remember your question now because I just kept rambling, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you answered it. It was referencing like how did you logistically handle it? Who did you get, and where did you search? And that makes sense. And I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. At the end of the day, I think that the RCMP has been super open, whether it was because the media pressed on it or not, but they've released documents on their investigation. And, the documents are what they are, and they say what they say, and the investigation is what it is. And I think at this point, even RCMP are probably leaning heavily towards the wandering off theory. Now they're still doing their due diligence. They brought in cadaver dogs, and they searched heavily on Daniel's property, just in case. But as much as they searched there, they also searched into the woods and into where the boot prints and where the blanket were found. And so, all those things kind of point towards, crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and ensuring that they're doing, they're making sure of everything. But so when it comes to the searches, I'm sure you've been on many searches with dogs. Can I assume that?
Yeah.
And the dogs that were used that day, I know you weren't a part of that, but they were open air scent dogs. And from what I understand, there's a bit of a difference between air scent and tracking dogs. Would you mind explaining that if you know?
So I haven't had any training in canine handling, but I've been with
Okay.
many different canine handlers over the last decade since the idea of Please Bring Me Home began. And we've had the ability to go along with tracking dogs at quite a distance. When it's a tracking dog and it's a scent dog, I find that very different than a cadaver dog when you're looking for decomposition of remains. But I think I don't know what exactly happened that day with the RCMP, but from what I've seen and the conversations I've had with them, I haven't heard or seen anything that they have done or not done and been like, why? I wonder why they did that, or I wonder why they didn't do that. So I think that whatever dogs they chose to have in there and whenever time they brought them in was seeming the right call. We've had cadaver dogs there since our search, and a canine team that we've worked with in the past out in Nova Scotia on Dylan Ealer. And I'm very, it's not 100%. A dog's going to go in and it's going to do the best job that it can do, but it's not 100%. Just like if I go in and search an area or anybody else goes in and search an area, it's not 100%, but it's as close as you can really get at that time. Boots, nothing beats boots on the ground and walking in the woods. But I trust the canines that were used anyhow.
Well, I think that the reason why they used specific dogs that they used was because there was another search. There was another search that was going on. I think at Eden Lake there was a missing kayaker or something like that, and they had a search
I heard
team.
that.
They had a search team, and they had the dogs out there. I'm not sure if you could answer this, but what kind of challenge is that? Like if you were on that search team and you're searching for a kayaker, and then all of a sudden it goes from that to searching for two kids. Like, I'm sure you got to pick up things. I'm sure you got to set up. You have to make a game plan. Like, how fast do you think that's feasibly possible to go from one search, stop, travel down to the other place, even though it may be relatively close, and then begin the process of another search?
I think in these situations, like, of course there are missing children. So it comes with this level of anxiety, no matter how trained you are as a searcher or how long you've been doing it. I can only imagine that it comes with this level of like, we have to get out there and go. But I think that I truly think that the more success happens if you do take that moment and do take a little bit of time to actually get set up to go properly. Going from an active search to another one, I mean, I don't know. I've never had to do that, because when we go out to search, it is geared towards what we're there to do that day for that specific case, and it's not like we're getting pulled somewhere else that day. But I can only guess that I would guess a minimum an hour to get organized to then go start your searching. I would be my guess. And a lot of the times when we go, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you again, but a lot of times when we go, we have the ability to plan weeks in advance.
Yeah.
And whereas in this case, if two kids are missing, we have to go now. And so you may not have a lot of time to set up and go, but I don't know how it went that day. After being on the site and seeing all the pink ribbons, speaking with our CMP, speaking with G-Star, like, I'm confident that what they did on that early onset, especially when they were searching for these kids. And even since we've been, I how do I word this? Like, whatever search we do, we always make sure we have a communication line with the appropriate member of law enforcement. So in this case, whether that's email, some of them will say, email me if you find something, or some will say, call my cell, and some will say, call 911. In this case, it was, we were given the private number of a lead investigator with the RCMP for Jack and Lily's case. So anything that we had found that day, we would that we felt that they needed to know right now. It couldn't wait until the end of the search day, because those were the two options. Then we would text the picture of the item along with the coordinates, and they would in real time verify on their end, is this of importance? However they did that, I don't need to know how to do that. And I don't need them to tell me that they're going to go collect it, or that they, unless it was of great importance. So this one instance, we had located a towel, and when this team had opened up the towel, there were bones in this towel. And so, I had got called over there. I took pictures. I didn't have any signal, so I had to drive up the road, and I asked the team to wait there. I sent the pictures to our forensic anthropologist in Toronto, who got back to us within 10 minutes saying those are animal bones. I still sent that to RCMP, just in the event that, it's a picture. I trust our forensic anthropologists, but I sent it to them. And then this is in the same area that we found what seemed to be a boy's t-shirt. And I had sent it, and the investigators did what they did to try and prove, is this Jack and Lily's? I can only imagine it's possible. Maybe they're speaking to parents or family. Is this shirt recognizable? But they got back and would tell us, you move on, don't worry, we don't believe this is related. But afterwards, when we're looking at the picture, I say this because afterwards, when we're looking at the picture, we had messaged the investigator again, and it was weighing on us about this t-shirt, and they just sent someone else. They sent someone out to go get it. And I'm like, fantastic, thank you for doing that. There was another instance where we're reviewing pictures that night, and we saw this foam in the water, in the river, in the background of one of these pictures, and you could pick out some colors like under that foam. And again, it was weighing on us, so we had sent that to the RCMP. They then, over the next couple of days, sent G-Star out, and then we also went out a few days after to just make sure that we were able to locate it as well, and we did. And again, it's just that debunking it and not leaving anything to chance. So, in that event, RCMP was fantastic to deal with on this search. They didn't owe us anything. We find items, we take pictures, we give the coordinates, whatever they choose to do with those items. I trust that they're going to do the right thing. We don't collect items. If we're like, we're going to just take it, we don't collect items and take it off site. So, it was a seemingly flawless communication line between us and the RCMP.
That's great. And I think that was a question mark from some folks. Some folks thought that maybe perhaps the RCMP was against the search. It's good to hear that they weren't, and that they were supportive. And you guys going out there, was this the first time in that part of Nova Scotia for you?
Yeah, well, I was in Truro earlier in the year to do a search for Dylan Mueller.
Okay.
I don't normally go on searches anymore because I'm the executive director, so I'm trying to focus on, bringing on new members, assisting new cases coming on, building out the website, just whether it be, speaking at events about Please Bring Me Home, and doing more of those director things. But I love, searching is what I love to do. So yeah, I was out in Truro a few months prior to this, but I've never been in this search was the toughest I've ever been on. The terrain was difficult. You're 50 feet in the woods and you are turned around and you are soaking wet. and you have
Wow.
fallen 3 times already. Like it is rough area. G-Star warned us about it. RCMP warned us about it. And to your thing earlier as well, RCMP was never against us going. They can't ask us to go, and they can't tell us not to go. And we got that out of the way right off the hop. We just wanted to make sure they understood we're just coming in as a resource to assist, and we're not investigating. We're not interviewing witnesses and asking questions. We're just going to go out and do some good searching and provide the data to you, right?
Mhm. And you mentioned the terrain, and that was where I was going to go next. It appears to be very heavily forested. I saw some other search and rescue teams that were out there initially. They were talking about the terrain and how dense it was and how it was hard to walk through. Um, if the kids wandered off, do you think they may have stayed closer to these open paths and open walkways?
I would be surprised if they got in more than 10 feet into some of these woods. If they did, I think that, in all of the data that we've looked at and some of the data that we've got, it's more likely they would have stuck to pathways, what's easily accessible to them. They may have tried to get off that pathway for whatever reason, but I think it would have been brief. And they likely would have just gone back on what was easiest to walk. But you get down one of those pipeline trails, and there's so many little forks off that go in different directions that may look to them to be easily accessible. So
Interesting. Yeah, that was one of the things that I was wondering too about the pipeline, because I mean, we can only look from Google Earth, and Google Earth shows like a handful of trails that you can see from the satellite image. And what you're saying is, it sounds like there could be other paths that are off the pipeline that they could have walked. That makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
In the beginning, Malaya and Daniel had notified law enforcement that the kids could have been gone for about 20 minutes. It appears, given the documents and given everything else, that they could have been gone much longer than that. How important or how huge is that to have the timeline wrong, if it was in fact like an hour to an hour and 10 minutes missing versus 20?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen before where if it's believed that the person had wandered into the woods, have made it much farther than anyone can anticipate, and kids even. And it may not seem like much, and I think that, I don't know how the RCMP and GSTAR set up their perimeter, but I can only assume that it was large in scale, because the parents believe they last heard them at a certain time, or had called the police at this time. But you really have to, you want to extend that as far as possible. Let's say they went missing, just when the sun was coming up at 6:30 in the morning or something. How do we know? So you really have to search there. So it's really important. If you don't have that right, and you don't have that perimeter set up, it's catastrophic, because they could have slipped past the perimeter already before you had set it up. I don't think that was this case. I think that these are two small kids, and I think that if they wandered, then they stuck to the trails, and they weren't going through the woods, and was what path they could have taken. Now, when we're past 8 months, you can really start to look at not how far did they get, what time did they leave, but now we're looking at, and it's difficult to have this conversation, but how far could they have really walked before they had just laid down, passed away? Like,
Right.
how far is that distance? And that's really where you have to start, and now work your way back. Please bring me home. That's what you have to do. You have to just, when we were doing a shoreline search on the lake for a gentleman, 110 kilometers of shoreline, you have to look at it because he could have gone anywhere.
Yeah.
In this case, you have to almost look at it like that in the grand scale.
Yeah, and kids can get a lot further than folks think. There was a 2-year-old out here in Arizona that got 7 miles away. He was found, fortunately, traversed 5 miles through the wilderness, and then found his way onto a ranch, and then a ranch dog came in contact and then guided the boy home, or guided to his home, and it was a total of 7 miles that the kid had traversed overnight, and crazy. I mean, crazy.
They can. You know, I used to work in on a crisis team for over 100 kids in Peterborough, Ontario, that were under this foster care umbrella. And one of the duties on the crisis team was if there were if there were violent behaviors happening, you'd get called and go and help. But if they ran away, and the amount of times that we would get called to the same kid running away, we would typically always catch him before he was able to get across the causeway. And but when he had another foster kid with him at this house, those two could make it much farther, much quicker together. And I found that so interesting, and I find that interesting with these two. Especially with the data that we've been reading, is more apt when two children are together. They're less likely to turn around and go back. They're more likely to continue going forward. So I found that to be the most interesting thing that we learned when we got involved in Jack and Lily's case.
Yeah, and MV, she's the one that sent me some documents, and she had also commented on that aspect as well, because you have then I guess you have confirmation from the other person that all right, let's go. You have less fear there, and so definitely could have gotten a lot further. And I know some folks are saying that, hey, Arizona is different than Nova Scotia.
Well, everywhere is different. I mean, but the walking, however we want to come up with that equation for, okay, well, 7 miles in Arizona is really only this far if we're factoring in the terrain, the woods, and the water, what have you. But still, no matter where you are, I think that children can make it farther than what people typically anticipate.
Yeah, and I think that there's a misconception about Arizona because of Phoenix, that the entire state is a desert. It's not. There's a large portion of it is a national forest. A large portion of it up north in Arizona does snow, is part of the mountains and things of that nature. And so I understand, guys, but the other thing is too, if Jack and Lily wandered off and they got far, I don't think they wandered off through the dense woods. It's going to be through the pathways and in the clearings and stuff like that. And so
anything is possible, but I would think, I know that when we lost group 6 there for a little bit, and I walked, maybe 25 feet into the woods, I was like, I was having a difficult time, someone who searched for 10 years, getting over some of these spots. And I'm like, I could see them getting into the woods a little bit, but far, I just don't see it. Not that it's not impossible. It's just less probable, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think they got far into the woods. I think that they just kept walking, and where they were going or why they were going, I don't know, but it does seem like you have a blanket, and then along the same path, there's some boot prints. And so it does kind of seem like there's some sort of trail there. Now, and I'm not sure if you would know this or not, but Daniel had told me that the boot prints from the blanket were eventually found by an uncertified dog. And the documents don't indicate that to be true. It says that there wasn't a link there to be found, a scent there to be found. Is that because the dog wasn't certified? Like, can you not, if you don't have a certified dog, can you not say that there's a link found there?
I think it would be hard to blame it on the dog locating it, I guess. I mean, I'm not too sure about that. I know that, I can give an example. We were searching for Terry Shope along Georgian Bay in Owen Sound, Ontario. And we had a cadaver dog in the boat with us.
Mhm.
And I was with Bill and Sheba the dog, and then myself were in this little tiny boat. And the dog was sitting the whole time. We were maybe 50 feet out into the water.
Mhm.
And I had put the binoculars up to look at the shoreline, saw what I thought to be shoes, put the binoculars down, and there's the dog now doing its indication on the boat, sniffing out, sitting, looking at its handler, like and beginning to bark eventually. And it's like, okay, so what came first, right? Like, was it did the dog recognize my change in behavior? That's what's so
Mhm.
hard about handling cadaver dogs. But is it possible that the dog was with the handler and the dog seemed interested in the boot prints if the dog was there, and then therefore, the dog was there when the boot prints were found, but did the dog truly say, "Hey, look at this"? I don't know.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, and it was a big difference in time too. I believe that the blanket was found around 4 p.m. and the boot prints were found closer to 1 a.m.
Mhm.
Per the documents, and so a little bit difference in time there. Uh, but like I said, I mean the boot prints are the one things that kind of keep me out there. Do you guys plan on going back out there and searching again once the weather clears up?
Yeah, like so. When we went down for the search, kind of the thing always in the back of our mind, myself, our search leader, our search director, is get to know some of the people who are coming on the search and see if they would want to continue. Because instead of dragging us from Ontario, wouldn't it be great if we've seen people do the searching, we get to know them, we get to, you know, do all the paperwork stuff we do, and they've had training with us. If they would continue, and that's exactly what happened here. We have, although small, 3 people to start who have agreed to go out whenever weather is cleared, and they've been out 3 times already since we left. And
Oh wow.
the canine handler has been out there once on our behalf. And so throughout the winter, just because the winter's here, I don't want people to get discouraged that there's no searching happening until spring. No, if that weather, like if there's a thaw, if there's a little bit less snow, then they go look, um, and continue the searching. So certainly like Please Bring Me Home is involved until Jack and Lily are found in a search capacity. I don't
Mhm.
think there's any holes to fill in an investigative capacity whatsoever. Sometimes there is with cases that are 2 or 3 decades old, but in
Mhm.
this instance, we're just going to get in the way if we do that.
In a situation where the law enforcement may have an idea that there could be a criminal uh, aspect to it, do they ask you guys not to search for anything? Do they ask you guys not to get involved?
Mm, well, oof, it really depends on your rapport with that detective. Like we have had some detectives in Ontario call us up and say, "Hey, we know you guys are involved in this. Can we give you a call in 2 weeks? Can you do nothing and let us give you a call in 2 weeks?" And then you hear in the 2 weeks that someone's been arrested, something's been found, and we're like, fantastic. Um, you know, in most cases, they're not telling us not to go search. They may ask us to not do any interviews right now. Like, don't go and interview witnesses. They don't. I should reword that, because they're not asking us to go interview. They would love it if we would just never go and ask anybody any questions. I think for the most part,
Right.
because that does have the ability to completely tank whatever case they're building. But there are instances where you do have to go and ask certain people questions, because if this is foul play, if there is a case that's foul play, and especially if there's more nefarious activities involved in this foul play case, they're not going to walk into the police station and offer up the information. If you're not a police officer, you may be more apt to get that information in.
Mhm.
So, um, and yeah, we're only interested in locating the person. Of course, if there's foul play and justice plays a part in it, that's really not our purview. We would never stop those wheels of justice to go or anything, or try and turn people away from that. But we just want to locate these people.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And you know, and I think that says something too. You know, it says something about what RCMP is saying outside of what they've already put out there in documents. You know, so folks had some questions a little bit earlier. Apparently, there was like a lot of stir up between a blanket and a bath mat and a leopard printed sweater that was not necessarily found. I don't think it was found by y'all's search. I think it was found outside of the search. From what I understand, RCMP has said that's irrelevant, but some folks are asking, you know, what are your thoughts about it?
So it happened during our search.
Okay.
It was outside of the search location that we were searching. But just like everything, you know, the person who had found it had come back to the Union Center, relayed the information to us, and then tried to explain where it was. They didn't mark it on their, like, on a map or anything like that. They just kind of explained, go down this road and go off the side of the road here. And so I went, and actually CBC came with me to try and locate this blanket. We could not find it. So at the end of the search day, after we got all the search groups out there, I sent our search leader with that person who found this blue blanket, and he then took pictures of it, got the coordinates, and then we immediately sent it to the RCMP. Just like everything else, we don't remove anything. You know, it's not, we're not the ones to determine, is this evidence or is it not. We send the information off, and we trust that RCMP are going to handle it. So yeah, in the blue blanket, there seems to be this bath mat and a woman's top, I believe. And a couple of things that were shared with me from my search leader was that the items were dry, and it had rained for 2 weeks, and they were dry. And it was just something that we had put down in our document, was they're dry. And it wasn't an item that you could necessarily see from the roadway. You had to go off the roadway to locate it. So I think, in my opinion, I think that this item was found, and you know, the feeling you get if you've never located something on a search before, and maybe even if you have, it's this level of anxiety, like, oh my gosh, could this be something? Did I just find something incredible? And so you have this level of anxiety. This could be huge. I need to get this dealt with. And then there's kind of this dip where it's like, we're just going to leave it there because we don't know. And, you know, there was nothing. I mean, gosh, if we took a picture on every search of every single clothing item or towel or blanket that we've ever located, we wouldn't be able to do that. So in this instance, we had sent it to the RCMP. They knew where it was. And I just think there was some anxiety afterwards from the people who had located it, thinking it could be something. And then they did what they wanted to do to ensure that it got to the RCMP. And I believe the RCMP are still saying, okay, we got it, but we still don't know if we still don't believe it's of evidentiary value, is what I believe.
Yeah, no, I understand that aspect. I completely get it. You know, there's been times where
sorry, give me 1 second here.
Go ahead. So while he goes away, there's been times where I've thought I found something or something of that nature as well. And he's right. You get that a little adrenaline rush, like, all right, we think we found something, we found a clue. You know, sometimes it leads to something, sometimes it doesn't. Here recently, I've been working with a cold case foundation on a different type of case, and we found something, and we've been working on that. You know, that's just kind of something on the side, so to speak. So for those that are not familiar with the work that I've done, you know, we've helped out in the prosecution of Brian Koberger. There was the aspect where the DoorDash driver was missing, and we went and found her, so to speak. I mean, she wasn't missing like in this aspect, missing in the aspect where she was going on through some hard times, had been evicted from her residence, and law enforcement or prosecution was trying to find her because she was going to be a witness and they needed her testimony, and so couldn't find her. And we had somebody that was in contact with her, and we were able to get in touch with her. And the other thing that I've been working on is with another. He was I can't disclose too much, but he was also in law enforcement. He has a cold case foundation, and we're working on a cold case together. And so, a couple things to be on the lookout for. Welcome back, Nick.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And so
I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the blue blanket.
Yeah.
And just with evidence in general, we don't decide what's evidence. Like, we locate it and we contact the RCMP. We give them the information, and we trust that they're gonna go and get it if they believe that they need to. They have all the information, so it's really kind of out of our hands at that time.
Yeah, and I know because people have already asked in the comment section, and have asked me. But if it wasn't visible from the roadway, like, how did somebody know that it was out there? Was this part of a search location? From what I understood, it was outside of the search location.
It was outside of the search location. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. I know that. Well, and let's keep in mind too, like, just I'll devil's advocate myself here, because like when our search leader is going, it is darker. The sun is starting to go down. You know, just because he said he couldn't see it from the roadway doesn't really mean it doesn't really hold any value. It was just odd. I think the strangest thing was that it was dry.
Yeah.
Like, so immediately when that's shared with me, there is a level of anxiety that comes down from me, because it likely wasn't out there for 7 months then.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the last 2 weeks when it was just pissing down rain there. So, yeah, I don't know. But again, devil's advocate myself again. I don't. Was it under a tree? Like, I don't know how exactly this was found, but it was just strange that it was dry. And every other item we located on that search, clothing, material, anywhere else we looked at that day, was soaking wet. But that item outside of the search zone, not wet at all.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what, if anything, it had to do with anything. But yeah, there's some interesting aspects.
Who knows? Could it have just been something that was like thrown out in the days or two prior to that? It's not. It doesn't mean that anyone's planting anything. It still leaves out is someone just throwing stuff out of their car. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still leaving it the possibility that I'm way on the fence on this. What is evidence and what is not evidence is not really our purview. It's we just give the information, and what the RCMP decides to do with it is their thing.
Well, I know that there's been a guy that lives close to Daniel that's taken ownership of the sweater and the blanket, and the property that the sweater and the blanket and all this stuff was found was on one of his friends, his sister's property. And so from what I understand is this guy does like mechanic stuff and other things, but mechanic stuff. And I know that we had Chrissy Travers call into the show one time, and she mentioned, and she's walked it back, but she had mentioned there was a liquid on there that she thought it was blood, but she's walked it back since. And, to me, I thought maybe somebody just kind of used it to wrap a tool, and what they thought was blood was oil, but, or some sort of part, and it just has nothing to do with anything. I feel that there's a connection there. It's like, who does it belong to? It belongs to this guy's friend. I wouldn't be surprised if there's just some random reason behind it. The only thing that kind of is interesting is if it wasn't seen from the roadway. Now, I know I had sent some images of some things that some of my viewers had seen on Google Earth. So I wondered if it was from there, because one of the images I found on Google Earth was a blue blanket, and I had sent it in, and it was about 4 miles away from where Daniel lives, something like that. And so it was a bit of a distance.
Well, this was found much closer. Like, it wasn't terribly far from our search zone.
Okay.
But it wasn't on our search zone. Like, it wasn't. Yeah, this wasn't terribly far away. It certainly wasn't 4 miles.
Interesting. I thought it was further away.
No, like I made it there. I mean, when our search leader went looking for it, I mean, I think he made it there in less than 10 minutes from the Union Hall Center. So that's 10 minutes. That's like 8 minutes from the search zone. So and he's going past the search zone. So I mean, it wasn't far at all. I'm just trying to think about how best to describe this because, yeah, no, it was down. Like it was either down Gairloch Road or Lansdowne Station Road. Like, but it wasn't part of our search area at all.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that some folks got mixed up with some of the search areas when you're dealing with volunteers that maybe aren't the most map ready. You know, they may go off the wrong way. Is that accurate?
That happened this time, and it humbled me because, like, of course, they almost listened to my directions too well because I said cross the bridge and go to your right, and I did not consider that they would take the shortcut, which makes the most logical sense. They want to get to the search zone faster, so they're not going to come all the way down Lansdowne Station Road and up and around. Had they done that, they would have crossed the bridge and gone right, but they came from the north side down the shortcut. I think it was McLeod Road from what I remember. And they crossed the bridge and they turned right. And it was just like, yeah, they followed my directions too well. They followed my directions instead of the map directions. So,
well, that clears up the conspiracy, because I know that there was some people that were I know there was like a it was all over the place, that there was some sort of disagreement there. And I guess some folks felt like they were purposefully searching on somebody's private property, and that's not the case, obviously. So that clears that up.
Yeah, it wasn't, we purposely were not going on anybody's property, or we were doing our absolute best to stay off it. So we entered each river access point by the roadways. So by law, you can do that. And, if people had to go on people's property, it was to get to the nearest roadway. And because of that altercation that happened, I just wanted those two groups that were there for it to go out. And the easiest way was, you're going to trek through somebody's property. That wasn't the altercation. The altercation was this man thought that they were on his property, and the search team was not on his property. They were following along the river, which was accessible by the roadway. So, I mean, but in that realm of things, I can see both sides on this. The property owners are tired of people breaking into their sheds, trekking on their property. They don't want the liability. They just want their professionals to go searching. And we're not, like, I think we're good at what we do, but we're not like the best searchers ever. I trust RCMP and G-Star out there to do that better than we do. And I just think that they're tired. Not that they don't want the kids found. They're just tired of it.
And so did y'all have like I know that there was the one that made the news, but was there other like property owners that just kind of were like, not happy?
There was, what's it called? What's this? The Lorda Camp. So I wouldn't say they weren't happy, but that was the trail that I gave the two search groups. I told them to go up through Lorda Camp to reach the road. It was the quickest way out. It was the safest way out. And they weren't upset. At least I didn't get the indication they were upset. But you could tell that they were surprised to see the search group. But the group was really good speaking with them and saying that we're just trying to get up to the roadway. We're not trying to, and they were just sticking to the roadway that goes into Lorda Camp. So it's not like they were trekking across lawns or anything. That was the only other scenario. Everywhere else, there's group 6 that did get off their line and did get momentarily lost. But again, like there was no house up there or anything. It was just woods. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And and so, these searches are going on with you just mentioned somebody got lost. How did that happen? Did they just turn the wrong way? How easy is it to get lost out there?
Well, when you get that deep into it, group 6, they were working up the middle river of Pictou to the north. So they were essentially following that river the way that it flows. And what had happened was, when you get to the north end of that river, there's a hydro lines that run to the east from that north end of that river. But what I believe happened, from what they've told me, is they were following the river and then it jet off to the east. And I think with all the rain, there were likely these other forks of the river that just kind of went off into these other spots that would eventually just dry off.
Gotcha.
But they went and followed that one, thinking they were following the middle river of Pictou. And then they got just too far off. Now, so this all happened near the end. So there was that anxiety of, gosh, like, okay, now we have to turn it to just get these people out before the sun goes down. So I went and I picked up, Damien had a drone. I went and picked up Damien. We made sure all the other groups were out. And then we went back with the drone. And as we were driving down the gravel road to pop the drone up, they were walking down the gravel road. So they ended up finding their way out. Luckily, one of their phones, it would just show on the map a white screen, but it would still show their compass on there. So they knew they just had to go east, keep going east. I would honk my horn. They would radio saying they could hear my horn. And then they ended up losing the walkie-talkie. Like, so I didn't know they had lost the walkie-talkie at that point until we went back and picked them up. But in that last half hour, they had lost their walkie. We were coming back. We were going to find them. You know, it just, I'm glad they made it out. That was anxiety for us, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine in that aspect. I'm assuming like cell service and things like that is at a minimum out there.
No cell service whatsoever. Like, we ended up getting the Rogers eSIMs for 6 of us. So like each leader had that. But even that, it wasn't perfect. Like, so I was the person that would drive around and check in on each search team as they progressed. And so I would just drive my poor car down these rickety trails, and just to catch them, you know, it would be Nick to group 2 until somebody got back. And okay, just checking in, everything okay? Yep. Then I'd have to drive all the way back down and then up. And then every now and again you'd be radioed or called because something was found, or someone needs to exit because they can't do it anymore. You know, it was tricky, but we managed, and everyone did a bang up job who came out that day. Like, I was super impressed. I can't remember the exact number. It's over 100 kilometers though, from what people had searched that day. Straight line, but 100 kilometers.
That's amazing though. That the amount of work that you guys have done out there, it's truly commendable. You guys have done amazing work. I know that. I think I saw an interview or something like that where you talked about the markings where ground search and rescue were already searching. Like, how filled was that area full of those? Like how well do you think that the search was beforehand?
I think the search, based on what we saw, the search was really, like, it had to have been methodical, because you never just saw one flag. If you saw one flag, there were 10 more that you could clearly see. So, and it's good from us, like, to see that it's not just, you're not seeing a pink flag and then 20 feet away another one. You're seeing like 40 flags within like a 20-foot area, which tells you that it's slow. It's the effort that they put in was obviously slow and methodical. There were some areas that like the flags would show up less and less frequent or more spaced apart, but that's not to say that they didn't search it. That's just to say that, like, some could have fallen off. Maybe they took them off as they completed it. What we do is we're searching years down the line. We don't leave flags out, multiple lines out. We just leave the last line out. So we're taking flags off as we go down the line. But no, in this instance, they did a incredible job. Just shown with the flagging tape. I mean, the flagging tape didn't just wind up there. So
yeah. And so, like, we're getting, towards the end of the hour. and I know you mentioned this at the top of the show, but for those that are going to come out and say, well, if they search so great and you guys went out there and you searched behind them, they must not be out there if you didn't find them. Have you seen efforts like this before, and they not be found in that moment, and then later on found right in the area, maybe very close?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I like to talk about Eric, because, and I know a lot of the times it seems like, oh, you're blaming law enforcement or search and rescue doing a poor job and you guys won't find them. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Mhm.
If it's an area where there's environmental changes, there's animal activity, there's water access, and there's water access that moves and flows. I don't think it's fair to ever say that it has been cleared completely, or that wandering and misadventure has been done. Eric Spencer had walked into the woods in Honey Harbor, up near Honey Harbor in Ontario, parked his car in a stranger's driveway. The stranger said, "What are you doing?" And he just walked in the woods. Police were immediately out there doing searches over the next couple of days. Didn't find him,
Mhm.
but there was no evidence that he had ever left those woods. So, 5.5 years later, when we get involved and we finally go up to do a search, we decide, and it's the first time that law enforcement gave us access to their search maps.
Mhm.
So there were no holes in it, but you could tell that they didn't just do a waterline search. So just follow the river the way it goes into the swamp, and then into a pond, and then into another river. Just follow that. And that's exactly what we did. And we located him at the north end of that, his remains. And the reality is that when law enforcement was searching for him, so they searched for him in that first week. They searched for him a month and a half later. They searched with him the following year, and then 3 years, didn't find him. Not because they did a bad job, but it's because he was underwater at the time. And finally, when we searched, we knew water levels are low.
Mhm.
The landscape has changed a bit, and it was the right time. And it only took about an hour. Keith and Justin Campbell, they were just off the roadway in the ditch. And police did a search, and we located him. There's an individual who, it will come out eventually. Out of respect for the family, I'm just not going to mention the name yet, because I got to wait for law enforcement to release that. But we did a lot of searching for this individual. And when I look at where this person was eventually located and where we walked there 3 times, and we did 13 searches for this person. And
Wow.
they just weren't there yet. So continuous searches, continuing to look at misadventure theories, wandering theories, especially, and this place has it all. It has the animal activity, it has the changes in the environment, and it has access to flowing water. So you have to continue to just go, and that's what we're doing. When it thaws, we go. In the springtime, we go. RCMP and G-Star are still going to remain involved. Everyone's going to be on this until they're found, or we just continue to debunk wandering until something else comes out, if something else does come
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you were able to, share that and be open with us about those things. Cause I think there's a huge misunderstanding about searches, and that, if, something's not found on the first search, that there's nothing there. And I think
out.
that's a really, really bad take to have. And, I'm glad you guys are there, and I'm glad you guys are going to continue to search. Is there I know that, when things thawed out and you guys are going to go out there again, but is there like a planned effort of a maybe a larger scale search, planned for the spring or anything like that?
It'll be, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're always down for it to be a large search again. And because now, of course, we want to look at, I feel like you got to focus on the water, and
Mhm.
these waterways fork all over the place here where these kids were last seen. You got to focus on that for sure. But secondarily, all and more, and even maybe more importantly, is all these trails and access to these trails where the
Mhm.
kids would likely have continued to walk on easily accessible areas. So yeah, certainly we're continuing to be curious about it and look at maps and plan accordingly. And yeah, it'll be I imagine another large scale search in the springtime.
Well, if you guys need any help getting the word out or anything like that to find volunteers, feel free to reach out to me. I'll share it on all of my platforms to get the word out and to get the information there so we can get a consecutive, a large effort out there
Mhm.
to try to find some answers, for the family members, for the little boy and the little girl, Lily and Jack, that are missing, so that they can find peace if they are out there. Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me. If people want to follow some of the things that you're doing, if they want to maybe look up some of the missing persons that you guys are trying to find, where can they find you?
Yeah, just Google "Please Bring Me Home," and we have, we're on X and Instagram and Facebook, and we have a website. And if you have information, if you have thoughts and opinions on it, throw it up on our Facebook. We're very seldom do we delete comments. It's okay if we disagree with you. Let's talk about it. And we want to hear, even if you think your tip is insignificant, the amount of times that we've gotten tips in, it's like, I don't think this is important at all. And then it's just like a bombshell. It's like, well, that is important. Go ahead and share it, any of the cases. And yeah, just continue to share these cases. Someone out there knows something for a lot of the cases that we look at. And I just, persuade people to continue talking about missing people.
Yes. And thank you again, Nick. Thank you to Please Bring Me Home for the great work that they're doing. And
Yeah, thank
in
you.
this search and helping bringing other missing persons home. You guys are doing great work. I think you guys are amazing. Guys,
Thanks so much, buddy.
yes, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. If you guys have another search coming up and, if something found, not found, love to have you back on once you guys have some more information. But it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, pal.
Thank you, guys. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us today. I want to thank everybody that's tuned in. You guys have a great night. I'm going to be back on tomorrow night talking about the Brown University shooting and everything that's going on in that case. You guys have a great night. We'll see you guys then. Laters. Peace.